The night was heavy with smoke and whispers, the market alive with cruel laughter, and the sound of chains dragging across the stone floor. In the center of the alien bazaar stood a massive stage of black iron lit by torches that flickered like hungry flames. It was here the traders brought their goods. Some were weapons, some were beasts, and some were living beings. The auctioneer, a tall reptilian creature with scaled skin and golden eyes, raised his clawed hands. His voice cut through the air like a blade. Tonight, the rarest prizes, strong, weak, broken, it matters not. They are yours if you have the credits. The crowd of aliens cheered, waving their claws, their tentacles, their cold metallic limbs. One cage was dragged onto the stage, iron bars groaning. Inside, curled in the corner, was a young alien girl. Her body was thin, her skin bruised, her eyes wide with fear. She hugged her knees, trembling under the stares of hundreds of buyers. She was not dressed, only covered with rags that did nothing to hide her suffering. Pathetic, the auctioneer shouted, pulling at the cage with his tail. Too weak for labor, too fragile for games, but still worth something. If nothing else, she can be meat. The crowd laughed, the sound cruel and sharp. A fat alien waved his hand. I'll pay to roast her tonight. Another shouted, she's worthless, sell her by weight. Others banged the stage, shouting for the price to begin. The girl lifted her head, tears glimmering in her eyes. She searched the crowd with desperate hope, but found only hungry stares and mocking faces. Her lips trembled and a whisper escaped her throat, too soft for most to hear. Please, not like this. In that moment, a figure stepped into the edge of the crowd. He was not like the others. His skin was pale, his frame tall, his eyes sharp and human, a stranger among aliens. The crowd fell silent. And for a heartbeat, surprised to see a human in this place. Humans rarely came here, and when they did, they kept their heads low. But this one walked with calm steps, his eyes fixed on the cage. The auctioneer sneered, a human? Do you wish to buy, or just watch the slaughter? The crowd laughed again. The human said nothing. He kept walking closer until he stood at the very front, the flickering firelight casting shadows across his face. His eyes met the girl's. For the first time that night, she did not see hunger or cruelty in a gaze. She saw something else, hesitation, maybe pity. Her lips parted, her voice barely a breath, but it reached him. Sold for meat, human. Hold me, use me, just get me out of here. The human's chest tightened at the words, not because of what she asked, but because of the despair behind them. She was not begging for pleasure, not even for kindness. She was begging for escape, from pain, from death, from being nothing more than a body to be consumed. The auctioneer smirked. Do you hear that, human? Even she begs to be bought. Place your bid if you dare, or step aside for real customers. The human raised his hand slowly. I'll pay. The crowd erupted in laughter, shaking the walls of the market. The human wastes his money. She's good for nothing. Throw her in the stew, that's all she's worth. But still, the human's hand stayed high, his eyes never leaving the girl in the cage. The auctioneer grinned, sensing amusement in the crowd, but also profit. Very well, the reptilian shouted. The human makes the first bid. Who will challenge him? Voices rose, coins clattered, and the auction hall came alive with madness. But the girl no longer listened. Her gaze stayed locked on the human, her tears falling silently. For the first time, hope trembled in her chest. And so began the dark auction. The noise of the crowd grew louder as the auctioneer shouted for higher bids. Credits clinked, voices screamed, and cruel laughter filled the air. The girl in the cage pressed her forehead against the cold iron bars. She wanted to disappear, but the torches burned too bright, and every alien eye was fixed on her. Then her eyes found the human again. He was still standing there, calm in the middle of chaos. His hand was raised, his face steady, his gaze locked on her. She had never seen eyes like his before. They did not burn with hunger. They did not shine with greed. They only watched her with something she could not name. Her throat ached as she forced words out, soft, broken, and desperate. Sold for meat, human. Hold me, use me, just get me out of here. The words were more a plea for life than anything else. She did not care what he did with her, as long as she was not taken away and butchered. Her voice carried only to him, lost under the roaring noise of the hall. The human's jaw tightened. His chest rose and fell slowly as if fighting against something inside him. He did not answer, but his hand remained high, steady, and unshaken. The crowd laughed at him again, calling him a fool, a weakling, a waste of credits. "Sold for meat!" shouted a tusked alien, banging his fist against the railing. "Don't bother, human. She'll die in your arms anyway." But the human did not lower his hand. His silence cut sharper than words. The auctioneer's golden eyes narrowed. He enjoyed the scene. A human, mocked and cornered, yet stubborn. The perfect entertainment. He slammed his staff down, sparks flying from the stage. "The human bids. Who will challenge?" Shouts rose. Some offered real prices just to force the human higher. Others raised the numbers simply for fun, treating him like prey in a game. The human responded each time with a calm nod, each nod heavier than tease. At last, the girl clutched the iron bars with thin fingers. Her heart raced. Each time his nod came, hope flared, though fear wrapped around it tightly. What if he lost? What if they dragged her away to the slaughterhouse? She whispered again, her voice breaking. "Please, please don't stop." The human heard her. His eyes softened, only for a moment. Finally, the auctioneer slammed his staff again. "Enough. The human pays the highest price." The hall fell into shocked silence for a heartbeat before breaking into laughter again. Some clapped mockingly, others shook their heads. The human had won, but at what cost? Guards in heavy armor moved to the cage. They unlocked the door with a screech of metal. The girl flinched as light spilled inside. One guard grabbed her by the arm, dragging her roughly out. She stumbled, too weak to resist. The second guard shoved her forward until she nearly fell off the stage. Then she felt it, a hand catching her, steadying her before she hit the ground. She looked up. The human was there, his grip firm but gentle, pulling her close. For a moment, the noise of the hall faded. She could hear only her own heartbeat, fast and uneven. She leaned against him, shaking. "You really bought me?" she whispered, voice small as ash. The human bent his head slightly, speaking low so only she heard. "Not for meat, not for use, to take you away from this." Her breath caught. She did not know whether to believe him. No one had ever spoken to her like that. No one had ever looked at her with anything but hunger or cruelty. The auctioneer spread his arms wide. "The deal is done. The human owns the worthless one now. Take them both away before the smell of pity makes me sick." The crowd roared in cruel amusement as the human led her off the stage. But the girl no longer heard the laughter. She clung to his arm with the last of her strength, airing again and again like a prayer. "Don't let go. Don't let go." The human said nothing, but his grip only tightened, and his eyes never left the path ahead. The crowd was still laughing when the human and the girl stepped down from the stage. Their cruel voices echoed through the auction hall. To them, this was nothing more than a joke, a foolish human spending good credits on something useless. "Look at him," one alien sneered. "He paid more for scraps than I would for a beast." Another hissed. "She won't last the night. Humans don't know value." The human ignored them all. His steps were steady, his hand firm on the girl's shoulder as he guided her forward. She leaned against him, trembling, her bare feet stumbling across the stone floor. The warmth of his hand was the only thing keeping her upright. Her thoughts spun like broken glass. She had expected to die tonight. She had expected flames, knives, and laughter. Instead, she found herself standing beside someone who looked at her differently. Still, doubt burned in her chest. She whispered, barely audible, "Why? Why would you buy me?" The human glanced down at her. For a long moment he said nothing, only guiding her through the crowded bazaar. Then quietly he answered, "Because no one deserves to be treated like this." Her heart tightened. The words felt impossible, unreal. She searched his face, waiting for the trick, the hidden cruelty. But his eyes stayed calm, steady, and strangely gentle. They reached the trader's desk where credits were exchanged. The reptilian auctioneer stood waiting, a greedy smile across his scaled face. He licked his lips, counting the human's payment with long claws. "You're a strange creature, human," the auctioneer sneered. "All this money for broken bones and wasted flesh. What do you see in her? Meat? Warmth for one night? Or just pity?" The human did not flinch. "I see someone alive, that's enough." The auctioneer laughed, shaking his head. "Then you are a fool." She'll drain you dry. Better you had left her in my cages. He shoved the credits into a lockbox, then waved his tail dismissively. Take her and go. She is yours now. Do as you wish. The girl shuddered at those words. Yours now. The phrase echoed like chains in her mind. She had been owned before. Every time it had meant pain. Her grip on the human's arm tightened, fear trembling through her voice. Yours? Does that mean you'll... She could not finish the question. The human stopped walking. Slowly he looked at her, and his voice was firm when he spoke. No. It means you're free from them. She stared at him, not understanding. Free? That word did not exist in her world. They passed through the heavy iron doors of the auction hall, stepping into the cold night. The air outside was sharp, carrying the smell of smoke and oil, but it was cleaner than the suffocating stink inside. The girl gasped as the cool wind touched her skin. For a moment, it felt like breathing for the first time. The human looked around carefully, his eyes scanning the dark streets. He kept her close, shielding her with his body as if expecting danger, and danger was indeed near. In the shadows, a pair of slavers watched. They whispered to each other, their eyes gleaming with greed. One muttered, "The human thinks he won, but the girl is worth more than he knows." The other smirked. "We follow. When the time is right, we take her back, and maybe sell the human too." The girl, sensing unseen eyes, pressed closer to him. Her voice shook. "They won't let me go. They'll come." The human's jaw tightened. He placed a hand on her back, steadying her. "Let them come," he said quietly. For the first time that night, her tears were not only of fear. There was something else hidden in them. Something small, fragile, but growing. A spark of hope. The iron doors of the auction hall slammed shut behind them, but the echoes of cruel laughter still chased the human and the girl into the night. The city streets stretched ahead, narrow and twisted, lit only by flickering lamps that gave more shadow than light. The smell of smoke, oil, and rotten food clung to the air. The girl stumbled, her legs weak after days locked inside the cage. She clung to his arm like it was the only thing keeping her alive. The human slowed his steps, steadying her. "Careful," he murmured. Her voice was barely a whisper. "They'll follow us. They always do." He looked around. She was right. Shadows shifted behind them, too steady to be the wind, too quiet to be normal footsteps. Slavers. They hadn't accepted the loss. The human tightened his grip and guided her into a side alley. The walls were close, dripping with moisture, the ground uneven and littered with broken crates. He moved with caution, his eyes sharp, scanning every corner. The girl's breath came in short gasps. Her mind screamed that this was just another trick, that freedom was impossible. She pressed herself against him, shaking. "Please, don't leave me." He glanced down at her and shook his head. "I won't." Behind them, the slavers whispered to each other. "The human moves fast," one said, "but he carries dead weight. She slows him down." "Doesn't matter," the other replied. "No one leaves this city with stolen property." The human suddenly stopped at a crossroads. The alley split in 3 directions. Each one was darker than the last. The girl's nails dug into his arm. "Which way?" she asked in fear. He didn't answer at once. His ears caught faint metal clicks. Weapons being readied. They were close. "Hold on to me," he said. Without warning, he pulled her into the left path, pushing forward at a faster pace. His boots hit the ground hard, but his movements stay. Ed controlled. The girl stumbled but forced her legs to keep moving, her bare feet scraping against the stone. The sound of pursuit grew louder. Heavy boots slammed against the floor. Low growls echoed through the night. The slavers had found their trail. "They're coming," she cried, panic filling her voice. The human looked over his shoulder. Figures with glowing eyes were closing in, their weapons catching the faint light. His jaw set. "Then we keep moving." The alley opened suddenly into a wider street filled with the remains of market stalls. Broken wood and cloth hung like dead flags. It was empty now, abandoned after nightfall. The human pushed through, guiding her to the far side. But the slavers stepped out from the shadows ahead, blocking their path. The girl froze, her breath caught in her throat. "No! No!" The human shifted, placing himself between her and the advancing figures. His hand lowered to the weapon at his side, a blade too simple compared to the high-tech gear of the aliens. Still, he held it like a man who knew how to use it. One of the slavers sneered. "You paid credits for her. Brave, foolish. But she belongs to us. Hand her over, human. Walk away alive." The human didn't move. His voice was calm but hard. "She's not yours anymore." The girl's eyes widened. She had never heard anyone say that before. Not for her. The slaver snarled and stepped closer. "Then you die with her." The human's grip tightened on his blade. His heart pounded, but his eyes never left the enemy. Behind him, the girl clutched the back of his coat, whispering again like a prayer. "Don't let go. Please don't let go." The slavers lunged forward. The night exploded into violence. The first slaver rushed forward, his weapon raised high. The human moved fast, quicker than the girl thought possible. His blade flashed in the dim light, cutting across the alien's arm. A sharp cry split the night and the weapon clattered to the ground. The other slavers growled, their eyes glowing in the shadows. "Kill him," one roared. The girl pressed her back against the wall, her thin body shaking. She wanted to close her eyes, but she couldn't. Her gaze was fixed on the human standing in front of her, blade ready, his body steady like a wall. The fight began. Two slavers charged from the side, but the human turned swiftly, his blade catching the first across the chest. The second swung a spiked club, but the human ducked low and drove his shoulder into the alien's stomach, throwing him against a broken stall. The girl gasped. She had seen many fights in the cages, fights for the amusement of buyers. But this was different. The human fought not for glory, not for money, but to shield her. Each strike was precise, each movement controlled. But there were too many. The remaining slavers closed in, circling like wolves. One shouted, "He's only human! Bring him down!" The human breathed heavily, sweat rolling down his face, but his eyes stayed sharp. He shifted slightly, keeping the girl behind him at all times. Suddenly, one slaver fainted from the front while another attacked from behind. The human barely turned in time. A sharp blade grazed his arm, cutting through cloth and skin. Blood dripped onto the stone. The girl's voice broke. "No, please stop, take me instead." Her cry made the slavers laugh. "Hear that, human? Even she knows you'll die. Hand her over. She was never yours." The human's voice cut through their laughter like steel. "She's not yours either." With a roar, he charged, surprising them with sudden force. His blade slashed in a widow arc, pushing them back. He struck one across the leg, making him fall. Another raised his gun, but before he could fire, the human threw his knife straight into the alien's chest. The gun dropped uselessly. The girl covered her mouth, her eyes wide. He was bleeding, panting, yet still standing tall. The last slaver hesitated, glancing at his fallen comrades. His confidence faltered. "This isn't over, human," he spat, before vanishing into the shadows. The street fell silent. The only sound was the human's heavy breathing and the girl's trembling sobs. He wiped his blade and pulled it free from the fallen alien. His hand shook slightly, but he forced it steady. He turned to her. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head quickly. No, but you're bleeding." He looked at his arm. The cut was deep, but not fatal. "It's nothing. We have to move." She stepped closer, her small hands brushing his arm gently, her eyes full of fear. "They'll come again. They won't stop." "I know," he said quietly. His gaze swept the empty street. The shadows seemed alive, hiding more eyes, more threats. "That's why we keep moving. We can't stay here." Her voice cracked. Where will we go?" The human didn't answer at once. He sheathed his blade and pulled her close, steadying her weak frame. "Somewhere they can't reach us." Her heart beat faster. She wanted to believe him, but the world had taught her only pain. Still, when his hand closed gently over hers, she felt a spark of safety she had never known before. Together, they disappeared into the maze of the city. But behind them, in the dark corners, the slaver who fled whispered into a small communicator. "The human has her. He fights like a demon. But he bleeds. Follow the blood. Hunt them down." The hunt had only just begun. The streets grew darker as the human guided the girl deeper into the maze of the city. Broken lamps flickered, casting long shadows that twisted like living things. The girl stumbled often, her body too weak, But the human never let go of her hand. Each time she fell, he pulled her back up without a word. But they both knew it was not over. The silence carried danger. Somewhere in the shadows, the hunters were waiting. A sudden noise cut through the night, the scrape of boots against stone. Then another sound, the cocking of alien rifles. The human froze, his body tense. His eyes swept the rooftops. Shapes moved above them, watching, circling. "They found us," the girl whispered, her voice breaking. He pulled her behind a crumbling wall just as a shot cracked through the air. Sparks flew where the bullet struck the stone. The girl cried out, pressing against his chest. The human breathed steady, forcing calm into his veins. "Stay down," he said, his voice low but firm. The slavers emerged from the alleys like wolves, their weapons gleaming under the dim light. The leader, tall and armored, stepped forward with a cruel grin. "You've made a mess, human. Killed my men. Spent your credits for nothing. Hand her over now, and maybe I'll let you crawl away." The human's hand tightened around his blade. His other arm shielded the girl. He said nothing. The leader sneered. "So be it. Kill him." The alley exploded with movement. 3 slavers rushed at once, their blades flashing. The human moved fast, striking the first across the chest. The second swung wide, but he ducked, slashing upward into the alien's throat. The third slammed into him, knocking him against the wall. The human grunted, his blade cutting into the alien's side as he shoved him away. The girl pressed her hands to her mouth, her heart pounding as blood stained the stone floor. She wanted to scream, but no sound came out. The leader roared in anger and charged, his heavy weapon raised. The human barely blocked the strike, his blade ringing against the alien's steel. Pain shot through his injured arm, but he gritted his teeth, forcing the weapon aside. He slammed his elbow into the alien's jaw, breaking bone. The fight raged in chaos. Blades clashed, boots slammed, and the smell of blood filled the narrow alley. Every time it seemed he would fall, the human stood again. His movements were sharp, precise, brutal. But the numbers were against him. More slavers poured in, surrounding them. The girl couldn't bear it anymore. She crawled to his side, grabbing his coat. "You'll die! Please leave me! Save yourself!" His eyes burned as he shouted over the clash of steel. "I don't leave people behind!" Her breath caught. No one had ever said that for her. The slavers regrouped, circling tighter. The leader spat blood, his eyes glowing with rage. "He's only flesh. End him!" The human's chest rose and fell heavily. Sweat and blood dripped down his face. He looked at the girl, crouched low beside him, her eyes wide with terror. In that moment, something inside him hardened. He raised his blade and stepped forward. "If you want her," he growled, "you go through me." And he charged. The slavers did not expect it. He struck with sudden fury, his blade cutting deep, his fists breaking bone. He fought like a man possessed, like a storm tearing through the night. One after another, the aliens fell, their bodies hitting the ground with heavy thuds. The leader staggered back, fear flashing in his eyes. For the first time, he doubted. What kind of human are you?" The human stood in the middle of the carnage, chest heaving, his blade dripping red. His voice was low, steady, and cold. "One who doesn't run." Silence followed. The remaining slavers hesitated, fear spurl eating through them. The girl stared at him, her heart racing, tears shining in her eyes. For the first time, she felt something she had never known before, safety. But deep in the shadows, more footsteps echoed. The fight was not yet over. The hunt would continue. The alley was quiet again, filled only with the sound of dripping blood and the human's heavy breathing. Broken weapons lay scattered across the stones. The girl crouched against the wall, her eyes wide, her body trembling. She had seen death before, but never like this. Never for her. The human wiped his blade on a fallen slaver's cloak and sheathed it. His body was battered, his arm bleeding, but he stayed steady. He walked back to her slowly, kneeling to meet her eyes. "You're safe," he said. Her lips parted, but no words came out. She wanted to believe him. Her heart wanted it desperately, but her mind was still trapped in years of chains and cruelty. "Safe?" she whispered, almost like the word itself was foreign. "No one is safe." He studied her for a long moment. Then he reached into his pack, pulling out a small piece of bread and a flask of water. "Eat," he told her. Her hand shook as she reached for it. She hesitated, staring at the bread as though it might vanish. Then she tore a small bite and put it into her mouth, her eyes filled with tears. "Real food," she murmured. He gave a faint nod. "There's more if you need it." She clutched the bread tightly, chewing slowly, almost afraid it would be taken away. "Why?" she asked suddenly, her voice breaking. "Why save me? I am nothing, worthless. They said I was only good for meat." His expression hardened, but his voice stayed calm. "They lied." She looked at him, confused. "Lied?" "Yes," he said firmly. "You're not meat. You're not worthless. You're alive. That's enough reason." Her throat tightened, and tears spilled down her bruised cheeks. No one had ever said such words to her. No one had ever looked at her with anything but hunger or cruelty. Slowly, almost afraid, she whispered, Will you sell me?" He shook his head at once. "No." Her breath hitched. "Will you use me?" He held her gaze. "No." She swallowed, her voice breaking again. "Then, what will you do with me?" He paused for a long moment, then answered simply, "Take you somewhere safe. Somewhere they can't hurt you." Her tears fell harder, but this time they were different. Not only pain, but something new. Hope. Fragile, trembling hope. She leaned against him, her thin frame pressing into his chest. "I don't understand you, human," she whispered. "But please don't let go." His arms closed gently around her, careful not to hurt her. "I won't." For the first time in years, she allowed herself to rest. Her body loosened, her breathing slowed. She clutched his coat as though it was her lifeline, and slowly, exhaustion pulled her eyes shut. The human sat still, holding her while she slept. His eyes stayed alert, scanning the shadows. He knew the danger wasn't gone. The slavers would return. The hunt was not over. But in that quiet moment, he made a silent promise to himself. He would protect her, no matter the cost. Far away in the city's heart, word of the fight began to spread. Whispers moved through taverns and dark halls. A human killed the slavers. He took the worthless girl. He fights like no human we've seen. The story was growing, and with it the danger. But in the ruined alley, the girl slept for the first time without chains, her head resting against the chest of the man who refused to let her go. The night stretched long. The human and the girl found shelter in the ruins of an abandoned storehouse. Broken crates and torn cloth lay scattered across the floor, and the roof was half gone, letting the pale light of 2 moons shine through. The human sat near the doorway, his blade resting across his knees, his ears tuned to every sound outside. The girl sat across from him, clutching the bread he had given her earlier, nibbling slowly, afraid each bite might be her last. Silence filled the air, broken only by the drip of water from the cracked ceiling. The girl's eyes kept drifting to him. Finally, she spoke, her voice soft and uncertain. "You're different, human." He looked at her calmly. "Different how?" "You didn't buy me for meat, or to break me. You fight, but not like them. Not for greed, not for power." She hesitated, then whispered, "Why?" The human thought for a long moment before answering. "Because I've seen people treated like nothing, and I won't stand by and watch it again." Her chest tightened at his words. For a moment, she lowered her head, silent. Then slowly, she raised her eyes to his. "If you knew what I really was, maybe you would have left me there." He studied her carefully. "What do you mean?" She hesitated, fear flashing across her face. For years, this truth had been buried, hidden even from herself at times. But now, maybe he deserved to know. "My people," she whispered. "They once had a kingdom, a proud home filled with light. I was born there. I was not just anyone. I was a daughter of the line that ruled." Her fingers clenched tightly around the ragged cloth that covered her. A princess. The human's eyes narrowed slightly. He didn't speak, letting her continue. Her voice trembled as she went on. "When the war came, enemies struck my family down. They thought I had died too. But slavers found me first. They chained me, sold me, passed me from one hand to another. To most, I was worthless, too weak to work, too fragile to sell. They mocked me, beat me, called me trash. Her eyes shone with tears. But the truth is, if my people knew I was alive, everything would change. The blood in my veins means power, it means hope, and it means danger. That's why they hide me. That's why they'd rather see me dead than free. The human leaned back slightly, absorbing her words. So they fear you. She gave a bitter laugh. No, they fear what I could become. To them, I'm better off forgotten, a ghost, or meat for their tables. The human's gaze stayed steady, unshaken by her confession. But you're alive, and that changes everything. She stared at him, stunned. You don't look at me differently? He shook his head. You're still the girl I pulled out of that cage. That's what matters. Her breath caught. No one had ever spoken to her that way. Not as a princess, not as a slave, but as a person. Her tears spilled freely, but this time her lips curved into the smallest, trembling smile. She whispered, "If you stay with me, they'll come for you too." The human's hand tightened around his blade. His voice was calm, but there was iron beneath it. Let them. For a long time, silence filled the storehouse again, but this time, it was not heavy with fear. It carried something else, an unspoken bond forming between them. Far beyond the city, whispers began to spread across the galaxy, rumors of a human who had taken a broken girl, and rumors that the girl was not broken at all, but a lost heir, alive in the shadows. The hunt was no longer about a slave. It was about a throne, and soon the galaxy would burn to find her. Dawn came slowly, painting the ruined storehouse in pale light. The girl woke to the sound of the human sharpening his blade on a piece of stone. The scrape echoed through the empty room. His face was tired, but his eyes were still sharp, still watching. She sat up slowly, hugging her knees. Her voice was soft, almost fearful. "You didn't leave." He glanced at her. "I said I wouldn't." Her chest tightened. For years, everyone had left her, family lost in war, strangers who sold her, slavers who beat her and moved on. But this human had stayed, even when it meant danger. Outside, the city was restless. The markets were stirring again, but beneath the noise was something darker. Whispers, rumors. A human had killed slavers in the night. He had taken a girl. Some said she was worthless. Others said she was not just anyone. The story was growing, reaching ears that should never have heard it. The girl looked at him with wide eyes. "They won't stop. If they find out who I am, they'll send hunters, armies, anyone to end me." The human nodded. "I know." She swallowed hard. "Then you have to choose. Leave me here and maybe they'll forget you. Or stay with me and they'll come for you too." The words cut the silence. For the first time, she forced herself to say what her heart feared most. She lowered her head, whispering, "I don't want you to die because of me." The human set the blade aside and stood. He walked to the doorway, staring at the city beyond. Smoke rose in the distance. Alien banners hung from tall towers. Slavers patrolled the streets, already searching. He could feel the net tightening. His voice was steady when he spoke. "If I leave you, they'll kill you. Or worse, if I stay, at least you have a chance." She rose to her feet, shaky but determined. "But why? I'm not your kind. I'm not human. Why risk everything for me?" He turned, his eyes locking in hers. "Because you're alive. Because you asked me not to let go. And because I don't run from what's right." Her lips trembled and she stepped closer. "You don't understand. I am not just a girl. I am a key. If I return, my bloodline will demand war. If I fall, it will mean silence and darkness for my people. Either way, death follows me." He didn't flinch. "Then let death follow me too. I'll carry it." Tears welled in her eyes, but this time they carried something fierce, something brighter than fear. She whispered, "Then, I will walk with you, no matter where it leads." At that moment, footsteps thundered outside. Harsh voices barked orders. The girl froze. Slavers, soldiers, too many to count. The sound of armored boots echoed through the streets. "They found us," she whispered. The human picked up his blade and tied his pack tighter. His voice was calm, but his jaw was set with iron. Then we don't wait for them. He opened the door just enough to see outside. Patrols moved along the street, scanning every building. If they stayed, they would be trapped. If they ran, they would be hunted. It was time for the choice: hide and hope for mercy, or fight and carve their way out. He turned back to her. Stay close. No matter what happens, don't let go of my hand. Her fingers slipped into his, trembling but firm. For the first time, she didn't whisper in despair. She whispered with fire. I won't. The human pushed the door open. The light of morning spilled in, and together, they stepped out to face the storm. The morning air was sharp with smoke as the human and the girl stepped into the open street. The sound of armored boots thundered around them. Slavers, bounty hunters, and mercenaries moved like a net, closing from every side. The girl's grip on his hand tightened until her knuckles turned white. There are too many, she whispered, fear trembling in her voice. The human's eyes scanned the soldiers ahead. Their weapons gleamed in the sunlight, their banners marked with symbols of power. He could feel the weight of death pressing in, but he did not falter. His voice was calm, steady. Then we make them afraid. The leader of the slavers stepped forward, towering and armored, his voice booming through the street. Human, you dare steal what belongs to us? That girl is not yours. Give her back, and perhaps we will let you crawl away with your life. The human raised his blade, his body shielding her. His answer was sharp as steel. She belongs to no one. Laughter erupted from the enemy ranks, cruel and confident. The girl closed her eyes, whispering to herself, please don't let go. Then the first shot rang out. The human pulled her aside just as a blast scorched the ground where they had stood. He charged forward faster than the slavers expected, his blade flashing like lightning. He cut through the first line before they could even react. Cries of pain and shock filled the air. The street became chaos. Weapons clashed, smoke rose, and blood stained the stones. The human fought like a storm, each strike fueled by iron will. He blocked, dodged, and countered with brutal precision. Every time a soldier tried to reach the girl, the human was there, unyielding. But the numbers were overwhelming. More poured in from alleys and rooftops. They surrounded him, blades and guns aimed from all sides. The leader sneered. You can't win, human. One man cannot fight an A. Where am I? The human stood tall, chest heaving, blood dripping from his wounds. His eyes burned with something deeper than rage, something unbreakable. His voice carried through the smoke. Then this army will know what one human can do. He charged again. The battle turned into a legend. He fought with a fury that shook even the bravest slavers. His blade carved a path through the ranks. His fists broke armored jaws. His roars filled the air with raw defiance. The girl watched in awe, tears streaming down her face. She had seen many warriors, many killers, but never one who fought like this, never one who fought for her. Still, she saw the truth too. He was bleeding badly. His strength was fading. If the fight dragged on, he would fall. Her chest burned with helplessness. She had no weapon, no power, but she had something else, her voice, her name, her truth. She stepped forward, her voice ringing out louder than the clash of blades. I am no slave. I am daughter of the lost throne. You call me worthless, but my bloodline still lives. The slavers froze. Murmurs spread like wildfire. A princess, alive. The human seized the moment. With a roar, he struck down the leader, his blade sinking deep. The enemy ranks broke in shock and fear. Some fled, others dropped their weapons, unwilling to fight a human who carried both fury and destiny at his side. Silence followed. Smoke drifted through the ruined street. The human stood, chest heaving, blade dripping red. The girl moved to his side, placing her trembling hand on his arm. You did it, she whispered, awe in her voice. He looked at her, weary but steady. No, we did. For the first time, she smiled through her tears. She was no longer the trembling girl in a cage, and he was no longer just a man in the crowd. Together, they were something greater. As they walked away, whispers spread behind them, whispers that it would travel across the stars. The human fought an army. The lost heir lives. The galaxy will change. And so, in the ashes of the city, a rising flame was born.